I got to tell you, like, what happens inside of your body when you go without food, let's say for 100 hours, which is 4 days and 4 hours, is absolutely incredible. I'll share a timeline here for your audience on what is going to happen inside of the body. So, the first 14 hours without food, two major things happen at the 14-hour mark. Number one, you're starting to lower the hormone insulin. Insulin is a hormone that signals fat storage. That becomes lowered and it unlocks fat burning. You start to burn belly fat, body fat. Second thing that happens here is that you complete digestion. It takes about 14 hours to complete digestion. So there's a process that gets activated called energy diversion. It's one of my favorite benefits to fasting. It takes a lot of energy to digest food. When you complete digestion at that 14-hour mark of a fast, you now divert that energy that would have been used for digestion, and that's being directed to the brain to heal the liver, the kidneys. Your inner physician will determine where to direct that energy. So this happens 14 hours in. Once you get 16 to 17 hours into the fast, you activate a cellular cleanup process called autophagy. Autophagy is one of the best things you can do to get rid of cells in your body that are not producing energy efficiently, that are not burning fat efficiently. It's kind of like a refrigerator that when you open up a refrigerator, it has all these groceries that have an expiration date. If you let all the groceries inside of your refrigerator expire, but don't throw them away, you just let them expire and sit there and put new groceries, it's going to be a toxic environment. The human body is very similar. We have cells and mitochondria that all have an expiration date. And autophagy, 16, 17 hours into a fast, it gets activated to start getting rid of those expired cells, fixing damaged mitochondria that are not burning fat for energy and helping them burn fat. This process gets ramped up around the 16 to 17 hour mark. Now, as we move into 24 hours without food, there's a intestinal stem cell reboot where stem cells within your digestive system are actually repairing the gut microbiome. So this helps with anybody struggling with digestive issues, acid reflux, GERD, bloating, indigestion, SIBO, which is small intestinal bacteria overgrowth. The 24-hour fast, you start to clean that up. And a second thing happens 24 hours in, Jesse, which is human growth hormone surge. A study showed that there's a 2,000% increase in human growth hormone at the 24-hour mark in men, and a 1,300% increase in human growth hormone at the 24-hour mark in women. Human growth hormone is anti-aging, it's fat burning, it's muscle preserving and muscle building. I mean, people pay thousands of dollars to have human growth hormone injected into them, but you get a huge increase for free at the 24-hour mark. As we shift 36 hours without food, there's a surge in ketones, meaning you start to burn a ton of belly fat. Those ketones start to increase your metabolic rate, which is your metabolism's ability to burn fat. It turns the brain on where you have clarity and focus, and it surges something in the brain called brain-derived neurotropic factor. This is where 36 hours in, it's like a spiritual experience. It's hard to put it into words, but this is why I think every religion practices some form of fasting because of what's happening with this brain fertilizer. I know that I just feel more creative. I feel more connected to God. You would feel more connected to your source, whoever that is. That happens 36 hours in with the fat loss, the ketone production. As we continue with this fast, 48 hours without food, 2 days, there's a dopamine reset. So many people that are struggling with happiness and joy and addiction, they're relying on social media hits to get that dopamine hit. They're relying on processed sugar and addictions, drugs to get that dopamine hit, alcohol. You could reset the D2 receptor sites in the brain. Studies are showing 48 hours into a fast. So that's the dopamine reset 48 hours in. Now, as we continue, Jesse, 72 hours into this fast, the entire immune system is reset. Dr. Valter Longo has shown this in studies, and other people have shown this in studies, where the immune system starts going through this autophagy process of like Pac-Man going in the immune system, looking for these what's called senescent cells. These are zombie cells that are not functioning at all, and it's zapping them, for lack of a better word, apoptosis. programmed cell death, and then it produces stem cells. And then around the 100-hour mark of this fast, 4 days, 4 hours without food, stem cell activation, stem cell surge, where your body's replacing all of these cells that it's gotten rid of with new cells. These are new cells for the liver, for the eyeballs, for the brain, for the kidney. I mean, your innate intelligence will determine where those cells go. It is absolutely remarkable. It's one of the most powerful healing tools that I would recommend for anybody, but you got to do it the right way. You got to build up to it and know what you're doing.
Okay, and we talked about different things that we could include when it came to intermittent fasting. Would those same rules apply during this 100-hour fast?
Meaning, what can you have during the fast? Yeah.
Exactly.
If you want to get the most benefits, I would only have water. It's funny. When I say water fast, most people think it means fasting from water. It kind of sounds like that, but that's not what it means. A water fast means you're only having water. If you want to get the most benefits here, only have water and electrolytes, unflavored electrolytes and minerals. That's it. Once you start having supplements or even coffee or different things, you're pushing your innate intelligence certain directions and you might lose some of these benefits. So, water and unflavored electrolytes and minerals are the best thing to do to get the most benefits here.
And somebody like yourself applying this as a tool, how often would you do a 100-hour fast?
I said anybody should do this. I was wrong. That's not correct. Not everybody should do this. Look, if you're underweight, you should not do this. If you're diabetic, you need to work with a practitioner. Everything we're talking about here is not medical advice. Number three, if you have a history or a current eating disorder, work with somebody on this. You don't want to stir things up there. If you're under 18, a child, probably not a good idea because you want to grow. Outside of that, how often should you do it? Once a year is a good idea. Once a year is good maintenance. Now, if you're overweight and obese, you could do it once a quarter, once every 3 months. For me, I do it once a year.
And earlier we talked about the importance of muscle. Somebody going without food for that period of time saying to themselves, aren't I going to lose a bunch of muscle over that 100 hours? Talk about what happens in that respect.
It's interesting because to answer your question, the short answer is not 100% sure. I'm not exactly sure what's happening here with the muscle part because I've seen some studies showing there's some muscle loss. I've seen some studies showing there's no muscle loss. I've interviewed people you've interviewed, Dr. Jason Fung, Mike Mutzel, and I've had this conversation with them. Dr. Fung is pretty clear that you lose some muscle and then you regain healthy muscle and then the rebound is better. Mike Muscle is kind of on the fence like me where I am at. Um, here's where I'm at right now with it. I'm not 100% sure, but here's where I'm at. There's probably going to be some muscle loss during those 4 days. Now, the human growth hormone will preserve a lot of the muscle. I think you're losing mostly muscle volume, which is water and some fiber in the muscles, but not necessarily muscle protein. And we're not looking at the full picture. Dr. Fung has a really good point. When they measure the muscle mass of somebody going through a long fast, they do see a decrease. And then they say, oh, fasting is not good. You lose muscle. But to his point, when they measure that muscle a week later, 2 weeks later, they see a huge rebound and sometimes even more muscle mass because of the stem cells and the mTOR activation. And you're losing what he calls junky muscle mass, junky protein. And then you're gaining back healthy protein, healthy muscle mass. So I'm kind of inclined to agree with Dr. Fung. He's the godfather of fasting, and I love that guy. But I'm still not 100% sure, Jesse. That's kind of where I stand right now.
And this ties into what you were just talking about, the muscle mass piece. How do you feel about somebody doing resistance training during that 100 hours to maintain, possibly even build muscle? And you talked about the benefit of autophagy. Exercise, we know, can boost that as well.
I don't like the idea of throwing in exercise during a long fast. Here's why. Yes, you can do it. But if you exercise during a long fast, like when I say long fast, let's categorize that as 2 days or longer. You're going to use energy for the workout versus energy for healing. I want my body to be in a completely healing state. I don't want to use energy and resources for working out at that time. So I wouldn't recommend it. You do get autophagy with exercise and strength training. Another benefit to building muscle. Absolutely. Autophagy is kind of happening all the time, most of the time to certain degrees, but it's really activated with exercise, strength training, burst training, fasting, and certain senolytic supplements like spermidine, green tea extracts, certain mushroom extracts could activate it. So there's different ways to do it. Yeah. But my favorite way to activate autophagy is through fasting. I just love fasting. I think it's one of the best ways to harness the innate intelligence and remove the interference and just it's nature's reset button. That's why in Metabolic Freedom, I have a whole chapter. Chapter 8 is all about how fasting is needed for metabolic freedom.
Talk more about the different supplements there we can take to enhance autophagy. And then would that be something you'd ever recommend or use yourself during a longer fast? And then also I could see how if it's too much during, say, a 100-hour water fast, maybe if we know autophagy starts around that 18-hour mark, maybe we could incorporate it on a medium length fast and really focus in on that part.
Yeah, it's a good idea. I would take these, they're called senolytics. These are certain supplements that activate autophagy. So spermidine is one of them, which is a wheat germ, and it has an unfortunate name. Green tea extract is another one. Certain mushrooms like lion's mane and others out there. Fisetin is another one. Fisetin is think it's is it from a strawberry, I believe? I think it's from a strawberry, but it's an extract from a fruit that activates autophagy. And you could take it during the fast. Yes, that would be the best idea. So it could be 12 hours in, 16 hours in, but it helps to enhance autophagy. The more metabolically flexible you are, the faster you get autophagy in a fast. The more metabolically damaged you are, more insulin resistant, the longer it's going to take. But you could take those senolytics, those supplements during a fast. It'll enhance the autophagy. Coffee, high quality coffee could also be something you can do during those first 16 hours or so to enhance autophagy as well.
So we've been focused on autophagy. There's also a subcategory under that, mitophagy.
Yeah.
The mitochondria. How do you look at those two? When one's happening, is the other happening automatically? Or is there certain ways to enhance one and not the other?
They're both really important, right? To your point, Jesse, autophagy is the cellular cleanup of your cells and cell membranes, and then mitophagy is the autophagy of the mitochondria and mitochondrial membranes. I don't know if they're both happening at the same time. It's a really good question. I'm actually really curious to find out. Have you dug into that research at all?
No, I know they both come up in the same realm, and I
Yep.
know one's more of a general term, the autophagy versus mitophagy. But yeah, can we target different ones? Again, are they both happening at the same time always? Some questions there for both of us.
That's a really, really good question. I'm actually really curious to find out that answer. I wonder if you get autophagy, is mitophagy automatically activated at the same time? We'll find out. In terms of where the healing is occurring, this is dependent on the innate intelligence. I can tell you this really interesting story, and I've noticed this with a lot of people who do these longer fasts and get more autophagy. When I first did my first long fast, that was in 2018, I did a 5-day fast, just water only. On day 3, when I was really getting a lot of autophagy, I noticed that my lower back was hurting. It was like this pulsing pain. And for years, I struggled with lower back pain. And I thought, oh, and I asked Dr. Pompa, like, what do you think is happening? He said, oh, that's the autophagy healing that area. And when I've had students go through these longer fasts and kind of guided them through, they've told me very similar stories. Well, like they had an old injury in their knee or their elbow, their neck, and they felt a pain during the long fast. And it was autophagy healing that area. So the innate intelligence will heal the area that needs to be healed, whether it's the liver from fatty liver disease or heart disease, whatever it is. You can't really push it and tell it where you want it to go. The innate intelligence will determine where it wants to go, which is super cool because I just let my body do its thing. But I'm really curious to know if you're getting autophagy, are you automatically at the same time getting mitophagy within that cell? We got to do some research and find out.
Let's do it.
Yes.
So when it comes to going into a fast or coming out, the runways on either end, how far do we have to go into a fast? We've talked about all the way from intermittent fasting to 100-hour water fasting. How far does somebody have to go before they have to start considering how they're buffering that on either end.
Yeah, autophagy is great, but too much, it's not good. It's too catabolic. It could weaken your immune system. You will lose too much muscle eventually. There needs to be a balance to your point. So a lot of people have been doing one meal a day, OMAD, and it's really, really popular. And I have nothing against OMAD unless you're always doing OMAD. If you do one meal a day every day, week after week, month after month, it's too catabolic. You're not going to get enough protein. You're going to lose muscle. Your metabolism is going to become more inefficient. But doing that OMAD once or twice a week, a 24-hour fast, great. I mean, whenever I travel, Jesse, is an OMAD day. I'm fasting all day because I don't eat when I fly. But doing it every day, not a good idea. There needs to be a balance. You want to make sure you get enough protein most days. If you're getting your protein requirements at least 5 days a week, then whatever fasting schedule you're doing is fine. It's working for you. But if you're not hitting your protein requirement because you're doing too much fasting, there needs to be a change in your fasting window. You want to make sure you're balancing out the autophagy with the mTOR. mTOR is metabolic target of rapamycin. It's growth, it's anabolic, and protein, feasting, eating, fed state gets you there. There needs to be a balance of autophagy and mTOR. They work in an inverted relationship. So too much of either, it's not good. You want to have a balance of both. That's kind of the way I outlined it with the 30-day plan.
Say you're about to go into a 100-hour water fast. Will you eat anything specifically before that or as you're exiting that to help guide the body in or out?
Before that, I would just eat like I normally eat and just go right into it. Some people like to do it as a reset when they're, for the weekend they had a whole bunch of carbs, maybe got off track. They could throw that in as a reset. That's okay if you've already done variations of fasting. How you break it is important. I'm glad you asked that question because when I create clips on social media, I don't have enough time to talk about how you break the fast. Is also really important. Yes, when you do a long fast, 2 days or longer, you want to make sure you break it the right way. You want to go low and slow. You don't want to break it too fast. You don't want to have too many carbohydrates. So the best way is to incorporate foods that are easy to digest and not a lot of food, meaning bone broth is a great way to break a long fast. Steamed vegetables with scrambled eggs and an avocado, great way to break a fast. A protein shake, great way to break a fast. Because when you are doing a long fast, your digestive enzymes are dropping. Your bile flow, your pancreatic enzymes, HCl, because your body's not eating. Why is it going to produce these enzymes? So by day 4, in this example of a 100-day fast, 100-hour fast, excuse me, these enzymes are low. When you have a whole bunch of meat and carbohydrates, you're not going to break it down. Yes, you could take some enzymes, it'll support it. Ideally, you want to go low and slow, have a small meal, wait a few hours, have another small meal, and then you can start ramping it up. But bone broth is my go-to. Eggs, avocado, steamed vegetables are my go-to, or a protein shake is my go-to.
And you personally, what's the longest you've ever fasted for?
5 days is my longest. I'm actually due for one. I'm probably going to do a video on my next one and do some experiments on it. People like when I make videos on my experiments. So yeah, 5 days is my longest. But the Guinness World Record, I know you know this, is over a year. 382 days is Angus Barber right now. He had a coffee. He had a multivitamin, nutritional yeast, water, and tea. But he didn't eat for over a year, medically supervised. So, of course, that's an extreme example. I know people who have done 20 days, 30 days, but for me, 5 days is the sweet spot. I like 5 days of fasting.
How do you feel about places like True North where people go for up to 40 days, fast just on water? Can you see additional benefits going even longer than what we talked about?
Yeah, I love Alan Goldhammer and True North. There, I did mention him in the book with their studies on high blood pressure. Yeah. Yeah, it's great. I love it because they're medically supervised. They're looking at all these metrics post, before and after, and 10 days is a great time frame for healing. For me, 5 days seems to be the sweet spot. Like you get all those benefits I outlined, you break it, it's not 10 days, it's half of that, it's 5 days. But I think 10 days is great. I love what True North is doing, and they've been in the game for a lot longer than me, and they've worked with a lot more patients than I have. So I think what they're doing is fantastic.
If you enjoyed that clip, you're going to want to head over here and catch the full episode. I'll see you over there.
I focused on hormones and inflammation. I lost 80 pounds of fat in 9 months. I went from 34% body fat at my highest to 6% body fat at my leanest. And that was 17 plus years ago. I am proof that it worked, and I kept it off since then.